literally a disaster today, so we're just gonna have to deal with it. If I keep doing this, I'm sorry. I have no impulse control. Anyway, hello and welcome to this video. My name is Lynn D. Jung. I am a science fiction and fantasy writer who sometimes dispenses advice on this channel and sometimes just does whatever. This is kind of a nice intersection of the two. Today I just wanted to sort of give you guys some unconventional writing advice. And by unconventional, I mean stuff that doesn't necessarily relate to what you're putting on the page and more has to do with how you're living your life. For some justification, I've been thinking a lot about how I relate my experiences, my life, my emotions back to my writing, and then also how to generate new experiences so I'm not writing the same thing over and over and over again. This happened because I realized I was sort of stuck in a loop of writing a lot of books about grief and a lot of stories about grief. Yeah, it's not that I don't want to write those stories anymore, it's just that I was like, I have to have something else to say. And that train of thought sort of spiraled into this. So this is a video of 9 pieces of unconventional writing advice or life advice to help make you a better writer. So number 1 is to live a little. Just don't spend too much time inside of your own head. I know that we are prone to this. We're very, very creative people, hopefully, and our imaginations kind of tend to be more interesting than the real world and a lot safer. So I get this, but honestly, the best thing for you as a writer is to live new experiences, have new experiences, painful ones, joyful ones, everything in between. Obviously, there are some caveats here, like when I think of experiences, when I think of living, for me, that's going outside, going on hikes, going on adventures and traveling a lot. This might look different for you. It might be something as simple as just like exploring a new town nearby or trying out a different bookstore, cafe, something that pushes you outside of your comfort zone in your actual life. Another thing here is that it's actually really fun to, step outside of the boundaries of Pinterest and take lots of photos if you're going out for a walk or something similar. Use visual inspiration from your own life or from new things that you encounter to spice up your writing or spark imagination. Number 2 is to introspect, but also extrovert. I don't really know if that is a verb, but what I mean by this is to, have dialogues with yourself about your feelings, your thought process. Think about how you react to things the way that you do, or why you feel the way you do about certain situations, and then also talk to friends and family, and then consider how their perspectives might be different from yours in ways that you may not have expected. Essentially, the point of this exercise is to figure out how the human mind works, but especially your own mind, and then use that newfound perspective to inform how you write different points of view or your characters' internal worlds, that sort of thing. Number 3 is to, if you can, and within limits, tackle your trauma head on. Dissect it, use writing as a tool to process it if you feel comfortable doing so. That's definitely something that I've done for a long time. But also, write something, short, write something raw, write something real and from the heart if you're processing something, and then take 15 steps back and take a look at it and then see sort of how you can turn this raw nugget of emotion into a story. Number 4 is to read widely, but also look for stories in other things. Personally, I'm a big cinephile. I love movies. I love even the trashy garbage Marvel movies, although I'm starting to get I've been sick of them, honestly. I love to look for 3-act structure and theme and character arcs. I love to pick those apart, and even the silliest action movies. They all have something, even if they're incompetent. At some point, a screenwriter with a brain wrote a script and it's just gotten mushed up along the way. Being able to pick apart stories in different mediums has been really helpful for me, especially in terms of being able to develop my own plot lines and even using those as seeds of inspiration when I'm this plot feels repetitive. I mean, every Marvel movie is the same plotline over and over again, but you know what I mean. Stories are everywhere. They're in TV shows, they're in vlogs, podcasts, all sorts of things. So go on the hunt and just sort of learn to recognize the makings of a story in different formats. Number 5 is to stir up some trouble. This goes hand in hand with living a little, and also just pushing outside of your comfort zone in your personal life. Within limits, don't do anything illegal, unless you're into that sort of thing. This is go dancing, try out an extreme sport, go perform in front of people. This does 2 things. It could help inspire something in a future work, and it can also help you sort of realize that, hey, you can do this thing that you thought was really scary, so you can write this freaking book. Number 6 is don't just interface with other writers when it comes time to, get critique or have a beta reader look over things. Having input from other writers is, of course, super important, but most people who read your book, if it ever goes out into the world, probably won't be writers themselves. Hopefully it won't be writers themselves. I would honestly be bummed out if that were the case. Have people from your life that maybe you're even scared to show your work to take a look at your writing. Like a partner, a family member, a friend from high school that you haven't spoken to in a really long time, but that you still kind of trust. I don't want to say like regular people, because that implies that writers are not regular people, but non-writers, people who might not read a lot or who do read a lot, that sort of thing. This will help you get a wider range of feedback and reactions, and will sort of like help you figure out how the general populace would react to your work, because it's definitely not the same reaction as writers will have. I would say that most of the people who read my work first are not writers at all, and I love them for it, and their feedback is just so insightful, and it's definitely on par with what other writers would give me, but it is a little less wrapped up in an agenda a lot of the time, if that makes sense. They're just approaching the work at face value. Number 7 is to make friends, especially people that you wouldn't ordinarily befriend. I feel like whenever I suggest something like this, my introverted friends are like horrified, but I don't know, strike up conversations with random people on the street. I do that all the time, or in line, like just talk and sort of see what other perspectives, see what people outside of your normal sphere of like work and whatever class life are. Figure out what matters to them, figure out what their daily lives are like, just these basic things that help you maybe understand what life is like in another person's shoes, especially if it's someone very, very different from you. I feel like empathy in general, just building that or developing it, is so important as a writer, and like not enough people recognize that, honestly. Number 8 is sort of similar, but it's to ask the people already in your life really weird, tough questions. This is something that I've started to consciously do recently, because I was like, I talk too much about myself. Like, I talk too much generally, but I've always been really bad at asking people meaningful questions outside of like, how was your day? And I don't think that's super uncommon. So for me, a super important part of my growth lately, like as a person as well as a writer, has just been to ask my friends, my family, really personal questions. Like, you don't want to cross any lines, obviously, but yeah, like I like to ask them what they're thinking. I asked this one question at one point, like, what is the thought that occupies your mental space for most of the day? Like, what do you think about the most? What's that sort of like background noise that keeps running in the back of your head? And the answers I've been getting have been really interesting. I like to know what people are excited for. I like to know what people value. I like to know, what people think brightens their day or makes it worse. Like, what's something that really bummed you out recently and it was small, but it still kind of upset you? And like, why do you think that was the case? Don't like be an unsolicited therapist. I hate that shit. Oh my God. But, just sort of dig a little deeper than you might normally. Honestly, too many adults lack intimate platonic relationships. I would be lost without mine. And a lot of that stems from the fact that I did grow up with a lot of my very close adult friends. But at the same time, it's also because we, have the comfort level and the capacity to ask each other these questions and have these discussions. And if you don't have anyone in your life like that outside of your family and your partner or whoever, then maybe you should try building upon those relationships. This can definitely and has definitely helped inform how I write characters and relationships and like closeness in general, if that makes sense. And I think it's just been a really good exercise for me. Number 9 is sort of maybe controversial, and I don't think it should be every time this happens, but like a good amount of the time. But when writing block hits, don't just take a break. Keep creating, just in a different capacity. Let your stream of consciousness guide you into making a painting or music, whatever strikes your fancy, maybe something entirely new as well. Write a short story, write a poem. Stretch the creative muscle without going back to writing instantly or like turning away from it. I had a really bad bout of writer's block earlier this quarter, and I definitely made the mistake of being like, okay, like I'll just work instead. But that totally messed me up. And now trying to get back into writing has been super fucking difficult. Part of what eased me back into it was being able to creatively work on even like vlogs and like art, gesturing at the painting stuff that maybe you can see, maybe you can't, and things like that. Embroidery, I got a little bit back into embroidery. I just have to get new needles. I think creativity is definitely a flow. It's a stream. And if you block it off all at once just because you're not getting where you want to in your book, I think personally, like, it's quite difficult to jump back into the stream. So my recommendation is maybe just like try something else creative. Not even a different writing project, just something else. Alright, so that's the video. It's a pretty short one. I feel like I talked really fast, but if you have any unconventional writing advice of your own, please feel free to leave it in the comments below. I am trying to be more consistent with my uploads, but we'll see. I mean, like, I'm technically graduated, so should I even be doing this? I don't know. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.